All right, welcome back. Gym Teacher Dreams podcast, another edition here. So we've had a Super Bowl champion, check. We've had a USA Olympic member, check. Now we have a Hall of Fame coach in Coach Ryan of Sycamore. So welcome, Coach. How are you?
I'm right in line there. There's a lot more important people than I am, so that you might have got me a little early. There's probably a few others that you could have gotten on your list.
Oh, I did. I forgot we had a professional women's basketball player on also. So
Oh, there you go.
I know it. So welcome. So, we brought you on, obviously you've been on our list and we want to kind of know, the first thing is, how's your family? How's everyone doing? Everyone's safe?
Yeah, everybody's doing well. It's just a little bit more crowded in the house because both the boys were home from college, so they finished up their school year here. But everybody's doing well.
Excellent. Awesome. Excellent. Ray, you want to go on with the kind of before we get going really on this host your questions for our guests?
Well, very honestly, I'm just going to lay it out there. I don't have anything prepared. I reached out to you twice, Pick, and I said, "What's the content?" And I never heard back. It was crickets. But I will follow up from your intro, Coach Ryan. This is something that's, I don't know. In my mind, I just wonder how you do that. You were inducted in the Hall of Fame, and you're still in I would say, the middle of your coaching career. You know, I mean, I don't know how you feel, and I'm not going to ask you or anything. But you got many, many more years. How's it feel to be a Hall of Fame coach in the middle, maybe the prime of your coaching career?
Well, it doesn't feel like I'm in the middle of my coaching career, but yeah, I was fortunate enough or unfortunate enough to get started as a head coach at 23 years old. So it kind of sped up that process. I don't know if it necessarily speeds up that process to give you a chance to be in the Hall of Fame. I guess longevity kind of helps that, but.
You've done a lot of winning, though. I mean, I agree. Longevity oftentimes, does it, but you've done an outstanding job. Whether you coach for, 8 years or 28 years, I think you earned that. You're definitely a Hall of Fame coach, I would say.
Well, I appreciate that. We certainly, I've never taken any credit all by myself, and I've been very fortunate to have some great staff members and some really, really good football players. And I think when you have that combination, you have a chance to be successful.
Sure.
We haven't hit the pinnacle that that everybody wants to get to, but
right.
We're pretty close at times.
Yeah.
So what I was going to for Ray is, one, he always asked, what you watching? That's one of our, we have a couple of staple questions before we really get going is, what are you watching?
Seriously. So when we first started this, I did the Peaky Blinders. Unbelievable. Okay. So I thought that was incredible. I got through all 6 seasons of that pretty fast. And this is going to floor you. I don't know that I'm actually watching it. I just watch episodes because one of my kids is watching it, but the Trailer Park Boys.
Oh, yeah.
And there is nothing right about that show.
Right. But it's funny.
Where we're at, when you got a chance to just laugh hysterically at other people, it's fun. So yeah. I catch myself, I can't even walk in a room without looking at Bubbles without just starting to laugh. So those are some of the things that we're watching right now. And obviously The Last Dance and all that stuff like everybody else is, but from a Netflix standpoint, it's the Trailer Park Boys right now.
All right.
So I feel myself going dumber as the days go on.
I don't know.
Honestly, in the little time that I've interacted with you, it's like everything and nothing surprises me about you. You know what I mean? It's like you listen to 70s and 80s country music. I wouldn't have guessed that, but it's like, I don't know. Like I said, everything surprises me and nothing does. I don't know if you understand that.
Well, I get it, and I'm probably going to throw you for a loop. I've even gotten into some rap genre now. So that was, there's a lot of things out there that are changing, and I guess I'm just trying to get ready for those changes, maybe. I don't know if that'll affect my life in the future.
We've been doing a lot of NBA talk, and, the guys that do have longevity as players, they have to sort of reinvent themselves. And I just appreciate that about you. You're reinventing yourself, whether it's with Netflix or music or whatever. Sometimes you got to reinvent yourself.
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to be around a lot of good coaches that have given me a lot of advice that you got to be willing to change with the times. Now you got to hold your core. You got to hold your core values, and I think I've always done that. But there's a lot of things that I've changed that there's no way. And when I became a head coach in 1993, that I thought I would be doing now. But in a lot of ways, it's made things better. So I think you got to be willing to change, and you got to be willing to listen to other people, you know, and take people on your staff that maybe are smarter than you. And I certainly got people on my staff that are smarter than me, so I try to listen to them.
All right. Another one of our questions that'll go in line with you saying that you're kind of, you know, getting stupider as you get older. So we've been watching a lot of like Alone and Survivor type shows. Like if you were ever in a situation where you had to survive like in Alaska or Canada or, you know, wherever by yourself, could you do it, and how long?
Well, those are some of those other shows that I didn't start watching before, but I love shows like Mountain Men and stuff like that. So I gotta feel like maybe I picked up some of those things, and I think I could live at least 10 hours out in the cold Alaska now that I've watched that show.
Yeah,
that's probably about 8 hours more than what I could.
Now you're from like central Southern Illinois. Depending on where you're at, you know, people call it different things. You know, like us in Northern Illinois, we'll call it Southern Illinois, but I think you might call it Central Illinois, right? I mean,
correct. Yeah, we were more considered at Central Illinois. Yes.
Yeah. A lot of hunters there. Are you a hunter? Could you do that out? No.
That's the other thing that it's kind of, you know, I'm getting closer to retirement, so this stuff that we've been going on has kind of opened my eyes up just a little bit. I don't have any hobbies. I don't hunt and I don't fish, and I really don't like to golf that much. And, you know, it's just, so trying to find things that, other than doing yard work, I don't have to find something, but it's kind of opened my eyes. I certainly am not ready to retire yet, because this is not helping my sanity just sitting around doing this stuff. I know that.
Sure.
Yeah, that's one of the things. Oh, go ahead, Ray. I was just saying, you know, the podcast and preparing for some of it, that has definitely helped me, you know, kind of pass the time. Because, yeah, I don't know if I didn't have this, I'm not sure what exactly would be going on in my house.
Yeah, you know, you only find so many things to do unless you have certain hobbies. And again, I might have to develop one and maybe have some more patience to have them. And just like you're saying, you got to change with the time. So maybe I'll do that. I've always been all the way in on my coaching and what I want to do for that. So I always felt like, and I'm not saying people that do that stuff and coach don't put all the time in that they're supposed to. I'm just saying that that's just the way I've always done it. If I have spare time, I'm usually messing around with something, reading something, or trying to improve somewhere.
Yeah. One of those last intro questions is, if you have one food for the rest of your life, what is it?
Yeah, I think a frozen pizza guy. You know, if I could just have that, I can get through. As long as I have a Pepsi and a frozen pizza, I think I could probably be okay.
And you're a Pepsi versus Coke guy, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, we're on different teams there, but I love frozen pizza.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, I could live on pizza, you know, 3 meals a day, no problem.
You got a favorite frozen pizza?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Say that again. What?
Do you have a favorite frozen pizza?
Oh, the only thing I don't like about on any pizza is pepperoni. So I can go with just about anything other than, now I can go a supreme with pepperoni. She's got it covered with some other things, and I can mask it. But that's the nice thing about frozen pizza. I mean, it's not like a hamburger is a hamburger, right? Well, frozen pizza, you got a lot of different varieties you can go with. Change her up. So that's good stuff.
So getting into the content here now after your questions, you know, so, you know, what does high school football look right now for those who don't know what, you know, so what are you doing to keep your kids, you know, working out and, you know, keeping them, their minds on football?
So we have an app or software that we use that we can do our remote workouts with, and it generates workouts for them. It took me a while. I mean, obviously when this all happened, no one was particularly ready to do all this stuff. So I had to build some platforms, and this software that we're using is actually called Platform, and it's got software where I can build our workouts that we would be doing in the weight room. Now, certainly we can't simulate what we'd be doing in the weight room, but some kids, they have a lot of weights at home. They can do a lot of these things. So those kids have that workout. The other kids, if they don't have any workouts at all, it's a remote workout that the coaches and the strength coaches and that develop this software put together. So we run that out. We can watch them. They have to log in, log out. So we know who's been in there, who's been working, and who hasn't. There's attendance. There's a bunch of different things. So we've been able to keep pretty good tabs. It's not anywhere close where we want to be, but it's way better than doing nothing. So our guys have done a really good job of buying it. It's just taken us a little while to get that going. But once we got it going, it's been a pretty good way to keep track of their weight training and their speed and agility. We run that out to them every day too. Now they can log in, log out. I don't know if they're doing it. It's all about trust, but it's a lot about trust when you're actually doing things anyway. You just believe that the kids think it's important.
Then in terms of, do you guys kind of meet with them a little bit X and Owen, or, through something like this, or how do you go about that?
Yeah, so we have Zoom meetings. We've been having some with positionals. I actually meet with me and some other coaches just because it gives us all something to do. Like you said, doing this gives you something to do. We meet with the quarterbacks 3 times a week, and they wanted to do it every day because they want that interaction. So it's really been 5 weeks now. The quarterbacks, we've been meeting 3 days a week on a Zoom or a Google Meet and going through a bunch of different things. So that's been really good for them, and it's really kind of the format that we're going to take when we start what would be our summer workouts. I had a big Zoom meeting a couple weeks ago with the entire program, and it was well attended. I didn't know how that was going to go, but it went really well. We were only missing about 4 or 5 guys. Some guys were in tractors doing different things, but they all got online, so we were able to get our information out. We're gonna have one more of those, and then we have a formula of how we're gonna approach the summer virtually, because I think that's basically what we're looking at. I don't think we're gonna see them at this point, even in July, the way how the phases work. So we have a plan with that, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, everyone's in the same boat. Have you talked to other coaches to get your ideas, or you've just kind of, with your great staff, kind of put your plan together?
Yeah, I do have a really good staff, so it's mostly with us. I do communicate a lot with the Metamore staff, and the coach down there, and they kind of talk about what they're going to try to accomplish. So it's really and that's the way it's always been for the most part for me. It's really the Metamore staff and the guys that I've had on my staff. So between all those, that's a lot of opinions anyway. So you get too many of them, and it's hard to work through all that. But I think we've come up with some sound things that we want to do. And again, no one knows how that's all going to work out. You just hope that we get through it, and we're able to all get back together and be able to play in the fall. That's obviously the number one goal.
Hey, if you don't mind me asking, who took over the Metamore program?
So it was my brother's defensive coordinator, Jared Gretner.
And he had been in the program a while, I imagine?
Yeah, he played for my brother, was a quarterback on one of his state runner-up teams. And then he went to McHenry College and played quarterback, but he's been with Pat for over 20 years. So there were a couple guys that were in line, and then he got it, and it kind of worked out all right. So he was the next dude.
Yeah.
So that was my next question is, obviously you guys are becoming, a football family. How did that all start with the Ryans and coaching football?
Well, it wasn't, we're a very sport-minded family, but I have an uncle that is also in the Illinois High School Football Coaches Association Hall of Fame. He was a legendary coach from Aledo named George Pratt. So he was kind of the coach, original coach in the family. And then obviously my brother Pat got involved with it and from early on, and then he kind of brought me in with it, got me going. And then my other brother, I have 3 older brothers. One of them's not in coaching, but my other brother is also on that Metamore staff. He's been there for almost 30 years. He's not in education. He's in management at UPS, but there's a lot of football coaching going on, and it's been good for most years. It was just nice for me. That's never that people brought it up. Hey, do you want to go back to Metamore when it came out? That's never been my thought process. That was never what I wanted to do. I always wanted to branch somewhere else, and I always like to take on things that I thought were on the cusp, but maybe had to roll your sleeves up a little bit, and that's kind of every job. The 3 jobs that I've had, we've had to do.
In terms of talking about flexibility, I mean, offensively, you've gone from kind of your roots. Was the wing T type or the veer. You've gone spread. Gone back. So one of the things, I always marvel at programs that can, just plug in people to the position, to the same thing, run the same thing, where you've adapted kind of what your style is to your talent. Yeah,
I think we're broad enough now, and it's taken me, believe me, it's taken a lot of years to kind of get to the point where we're at. I always marveled at Dan Darlington at Morris. He could win a state championship one year running the T, and then the next year be right back where he, state championship type caliber team being in a spread. He just always, but it was always packaged. I mean, it wasn't like a whole new deal. Like, we've kind of evolved to this, but there's still core values that have always been there, and we've just been able to have those branch off portions of it. But I think we kind of feel like we have a formula right now that we really like, that we can plug it, as they say, plug and play in a lot of different ways, and hopefully that gives us the best chance to have to be successful. But that's a lot of years of trying to. That's some hard lessons sometimes too.
Yeah, I think in terms of the wing T, Ray and I always talk, because he ran it in Fulton, and when I got my first job at Stockton, they were super, wing T. I enjoy, I enjoy it an awful lot, the blocking, the down blockings, and all that. But I also enjoyed when we went spread with you. So I think, with the variety, and I know you went spread, you called it the power spread, because it was still based upon, a power run game off of it, So I guess as we continue on, you foresee kind of, as you look down the program, staying kind of with what you have now.
Yeah, so probably, my big influencers that I've had is, obviously I've already mentioned Metamore, my brother Pat. So when we were running the things that we were earlier, it was a lot based on things that he would do or what we've kind of talked about, or and obviously they did it at a very high level. And then then you fast forward to Sycamore. When I first got here, we were not strong enough overall to be a really good either double wing T or wing T team. It just wasn't. We weren't there yet. So that's when we branched out a little bit of wanted to stay power, but we wanted to spread things out just a little bit to control the number of people playing the run, which forced me to learn the passing game a little bit. I'll be honest, in 1994, in a 9-game season, we threw the ball 29 times. 14 of those was in the last game. So we didn't throw the ball much.
Yeah,
you start doing the math on that one. But we were 6-3 that year. We had a good club, but then I got to have some guys on my staff. If you start talking about, you get Bob Cole on your staff, who was at Northern, who coached Jordan Lynch, who had a lot of spread background with the play action and stuff. And we really utilized that a lot in 2016 when we went to the semifinals, and Ty was such a really good quarterback for us and threw for over 2,000 yards. And I would have never guessed that I would have a quarterback to throw that much, you know, and to have that type of yardage. So we had that aspect. And then we were able to bring Kevin Crandall onto our staff. And although I've run similar type stuff that he has, it just, you know, there's no stone unturned with Coach Crandall, obviously a Hall of Fame coach too. So we were able to mirror some of that, or put all that stuff together. And then last summer I coached in an all-star game with Derek Leonard. So I got to learn a lot about what they do in the passing game. And, you know, you think about, man, that he's a savant, and he's the most gifted offensive coach that I've ever discussed football with.
High praise.
Amazing. And, you know, to spend that week with him, we brought a lot of the empty sets and stuff to utilize what we're doing based on the things they do. So it's all sound principles. So you got a guy that coached a Heisman Trophy finalist guy. You got a Hall of Famer. I got another Hall of Famer, my brother. And then, you know, Derek's going to be a Hall of Famer. And you put all those things together, and you kind of make sure, what you got to make sure is you don't have a hodgepodge of a lot with having nothing. So it's still got to meet your core values. But the nice thing about Kevin's like, you know, he really likes this, even though he was straight wing T all his, you know, not his career since 1996. But, you know, he didn't really branch off from that. And he said some of the things he kind of regrets is that he didn't, just a little bit. So he really is intrigued by the things we're doing, and still being able to run the ball like we do, but it all of a sudden be 5 wide. And that's a lot to prepare for, not only for you from an offense, that's a lot to prepare for. And that's a little bit of the worry about not having a summer, but it's a lot to prepare for a defense, because you're going to have, especially if you're going to change personnel with what we have in there. So that's, hopefully that's still going to give us an advantage, and we'll see going forward.
Yeah, and that's one thing I always liked is, you know, once again, it allows, you know, you talked about packages. It allows you to, you know, play, you know, on offense, you know, 17 to 18 guys, depending on, you know, may that be a little high, but you get more guys in with the different packages, and that keeps, you know, everyone mind in it, you know, just the same, because, you know, they've got to pay attention to what's going on.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. And that was one of the things that Kevin had brought up. You know, shoot, if you're in his program, if you weren't a running back, you better try to make it as a defensive back, because you really didn't have a position. Well, now we got running backs, we have receivers, we have defense. I mean, there's a lot of places, and I know 17, 18 guys, maybe that's a little bit high on offense, but it does create more opportunities for defensive guys too, because we try to limit the amount of two-way players, you know, certainly if we can. So I think it helps that, and we got to make sure that there's at times where we get a little run heavy when we don't have to, and we got to keep those other guys in mind, because ultimately the kids want to play.
Right.
I mean, they want to win, but they also want to play.
Right.
So we always got to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
You know, one thing I wanted to ask, and it's, you know, kind of, we talked about it a little bit ago, but you talked about how there's 3 and, you know, maybe 4 family members that were in coaching. So at holidays, you know, I mean, you guys picking each other's brains, and, you know, I maybe before we started recording was asking about, you know, dry erase board. You know, you said you use a lot of Post-it notes and stuff like that. Like, I would just imagine that, you know, the kitchen table at Thanksgiving, if your brother wasn't in the state tournament, was just a lot of, you know, X's and O's and football talk.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. Actually, it was kind of hard sometimes when we'd be down there and we'd be out, and they'd be going for a state championship or whatever. You know, you're certainly proud of him. I wanted to win and everything.
Yeah.
But his mind's elsewhere. But my mom would always say, no football.
No?
I mean, because it just, you know,
it would take away from, I get it.
It's kind of smart by, you know, hey, take a break. You know?
Yeah.
Take a couple hours off and do it. But there are a lot of times, it was always funny that and it works out, I think, in every family. The older brother always ended up with the pen last. So, I don't know, you know, my ideas weren't always as good as his.
Yeah. He who has the pen last wins, right? Isn't that what they say?
He always won. And it was funny when I coached for him a couple years, 3 years. And I always felt like I'd have a good idea and I'd run it by him, and just didn't seem to make the cutting table. And then a couple of days later, what do you think about doing this? And it seemed like the same idea I had a couple of days ago, but that day, hey, let's roll with it. You got a good idea going there. So that's kind of how that worked a little bit.
A little bit of a follow-up question to that whole dynamic with your brother at Metamora and whatnot. I don't know if this comes up or not, but I would probably say this. His bracket always came through the South. And let's be honest, North is a little bit heavier in the football talent outside of Rochester, right? Did that ever come up?
Yeah, and I think as he has now retired and seen that, and I think he has a real good understanding of some of the treks we've had to maneuver around to get to where we would want to go versus some of the rounds that they've had. There's no doubt about that. I think he'd be the first to admit, because when he would finally lose would be in the championship to a JCA or Providence. You know what I mean? So we're running, and obviously our nemesis has always been Montini. So we just would happen to see them either in the second round or semis or something like that. It would keep us from being in that state championship type game. So I that's for sure. There's a different level of competition to get there, but he's always had. I mean, that doesn't take away from anything from those teams that he's had, because they were some phenomenal teams. He had some great talent.
One of the things.
One more question related to that. Sorry, Pick. I was just going to ask, Joe, you've been coaching a long time. If you were in charge of the IHSA, would you do it different at all? Would you seed it 1 to 32?
Yeah, I'm actually on the football advisory committee, and that's always something that's kind of brought up. I don't think it'll happen, but yeah, I do have belief in that. I think if you're going to do it for 7th to 8A, and it's just might as well do it. And I know there's a little bit of travel involved, but they were willing to, and I brought that up. They were willing to make that sacrifice. If districts were going to go, there was going to be some travel involved for 7 and 8A schools, at least the 7A for sure. And they were okay with that. They were going to allow that to happen. Well, okay, if you're going to allow that to happen, why not allow that to happen in the playoff setting? You're already doing a 7 and 8A, but maybe down the road. But I do believe in that. I think that's the truth. There's no true though, because believe me, we all know that there's some false 9 and 0s and there's some false 5 and 4s. So it's not exactly a true way to seed it. But I think to get away from that, always being in the North bracket, I certainly would like to have that 1 through 32, or for the next guy that comes along. I think that'd be great.
My next question, is you got to coach your 2 boys, and your teams, and those special moments. And I got to coach Peyton, excuse me. Just what was it like? I mean, obviously down the road, I think it's it's going to be a little different. But how was that, being able to coach your kids, as a coach?
That game settings were fine as more practices. They felt like they could probably say a few more things than maybe what they should have in practice, like you're at home or something. But game wise, and then you get into games, and there's certain plays you have, and you're cheering. You don't know if you're cheering like a parent or like a coach. And my staff always said that's okay. It doesn't matter. Whatever one you want to do. So it was fun, but at times stressful. And I think I enjoyed it, but that's not an easy job. There's a fine line. There's a fine line, because you still have to make, and we always say you're always making the best decisions for the program, and you always had to make sure that you're doing that.
Right.
That's tough.
Yeah. Our rule was when we got home, we were done. Did you guys have that rule at all?
I don't know if it was necessarily a written rule. I'm a recluse when it comes to the season, and I've been, my wife has given me a lot of leash during the fall. There's no doubt about it. She's I'll say it, my best coach wife I could ever have. That's for sure, because great support, and she just kind of understood how I am. And I get home, and it's after practice. I'll eat, and then I'm back on film. So it's not like I'm in a lot of conversation to begin with. It's just not. I mean, it's not where it's at. So I've been very lucky that never had issues when I went home that I wouldn't put enough time in at home. That was just kind of stood. And I'm not necessarily saying I'm all the way proud that that's the way I did it, but that's the way things have gone. And things always worked in our household. Mainly it's because of her and making sure everything worked.
Yeah. You know, and I guess, you know, you've had a lot of wins, a lot of special moments. How about a few of, you know, you got a few special ones that you remembered throughout your career?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a bunch because, and then you got to be careful because there's a lot of great memories with a lot of good players, and you know, you start saying one over another, and you know, I think about
right.
my biggest first win was way back in 1993. We were playing a Pittsfield team, and they were ranked fourth in the state, and we weren't, you know, this was my first year there, and we beat them. We upset them, and that was a huge win, and it kind of helped things with that school. And then, you know, moving on to Princeton, and we were able to, you know, get in the semifinals there. There were some big wins. We beat a Spring Valley Hall team that was kind of our nemesis in that run, and that was a big deal. And then obviously getting here, you know, some people forget, you know, the first time we went to the playoffs was in 2007, Nick Anderson and Shep and those guys. So, obviously moving on, as we started getting a little bit better, you know, there's some games that you kind of think of and I don't want to miss it, the Nazareth game that we beat Nazareth in 2013. That was, I mean, that team they had was phenomenal. I mean, we were the last team to beat them in the playoffs for years, you know, then we did it because we have a guy that's playing with the Kansas City Chiefs and a bunch of other really good players. Don't get me wrong, but he was obviously the standard that day. And then, you know, beating Sterling in that quarterfinal game after they had beaten us pretty good at the beginning of the year. Then 2016 was really good, and then obviously beating Montini this year on the last, you know, in overtime and the second field goal. And I probably missed a few along the line there, but
right.
Those are kind of the ones that just really stand out.
Yeah. Well, we laugh because I don't know if I've told you a story of Naz is, you know, I was 40-some-year-old kid talking smack to a high school kid during that game. Because we were in the end zone, and when Ben caught that touchdown in that near end zone by the school,
yep.
You know, I kind of talked smack to that DB who I thought was a little arrogant at the time, and you know, I regret it a little bit, but yeah, I was letting him know that he couldn't cover Ben. You know, you need help. That's what I told him.
He had a day. There's no doubt about it. And the screen was the tunnel screen was working really well that day. That's for sure. But
yeah,
that all got started. You know, Devin had, you know, hurt his shoulder in the Canelan game, which was another big win. I mean, that was the biggest crowd we've ever had at Sycamore for a game. You know, and that was huge. So I missed that one. I mean, obviously that was phenomenal. But Devin gets hurt in that game. You know, obviously Nick Feuerbach comes in, does a great job. And then we get Devin back for the Naz game, and they had this sledgehammer that they put out in the middle of the field when they ran out. So when we ran out, Devin Motti knocked it down. Like, all right, brother, you better be ready to go. Then his first pass, he throws an interception.
Yeah.
Like, you better start backing this up a little bit better. But he did, and obviously to get a win against those guys was big. But that's how we started today. When we got off the bus, I thought we had that we'd gone to the wrong school because it looked like a Division II or III. Because I looked at all those offensive linemen going, holy buckets.
Yeah.
We don't have anybody that looks like that.
Yeah.
I know that.
You know, that's when we beat for basketball, we beat Wheaton Academy that one time with Ben and Devin and that group. You know, we probably beat that team 1, 2 out of 10, but it just happened to be that night. you know, we beat
Well,
them.
that's what you always say. I mean, it's not like you know, like the NBA playoffs. You only have to beat them once.
Yes.
And, you know, you don't have to beat them 10 times. You don't have to beat them that one time. So I think that's kind of always what we've always used. You know, and our kids are smart. They can watch film and they know when teams are good. Right? So you can't just go in there and blow smoke and go, oh, we're going to be able to do this, we're going to be able to do that. You got to tell them these are the things that we need to be able to do, but they might not be on their top of their games. You know, it takes one game to beat them, and you certainly are at that level. So we've been successful with that type of format.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess to follow up, I mean, you've had so many kids play for you. You know, it's a special thing when you see those kids after they come say hi. And I always talked about, you know, they come when they're college, and then you hope that they come back with their families, you know, and support the team. You know, talk a little bit about what that means to you, as, you know, I know that you're big